Hey Tyler, how's your quarantine going?
Quarantine's pretty chill. It's going great for me. I feel kind of bad because I know this is a tough time for a lot of people, but I mean, other than work being totally canceled, like I'm doing like okay. I really like it. I'm getting like a bunch of deep work done, and like no one's really bothering me, and I just have like a new daughter, so I would have been quarantined anyway, just chilling with her, doing stuff with her. So it's been all right.
That's pretty good. I mean, you dropped a news bomb on me. I was hoping to surprise you with some knowledge I had about your trip north of the border, but you're actually recording this like an hour, like 45 minutes away from where I'm actually sitting. You're in London, Ontario right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's so
That's
wild. I didn't know you
that's
were
so
so close
crazy.
either. Yeah.
So obviously, I know we'll get into Megan a little bit and where she's from, but I just want to wish you a happy a happy belated Father's Day.
Oh, thank you.
You are now part of a very exclusive, special girl dad club. It's very prestigious. You know, it's not an honor bestowed on everybody.
I know.
So,
And
so
the
how?
John Mayer song "Daughter" scared the shit out of me. So I've got to really I gotta be there.
And so how was your first Father's Day?
It was great. It was so fun. It's kind of like a normal day for us, except Megan and Winnie kind of like made a little handprint coffee cup for me or
Aw.
whatever, which was really cute. So I've got one of those now. Looks like would be a murder scene, actually. She doesn't know what she's doing with art, but she's 6 months old and and it's so cute. So it's funny. I've been using it.
So so you have some nieces and you have some nephews, so you had a little bit of practice, I guess, with the little ones before obviously Winnie came.
Yeah.
What's Can you describe like the life-changing moments of one, finding out you were pregnant, not you obviously, Megan.
Right.
What the feeling was when you first saw her, and then what scares the shit out of you for 13 years from now?
Well, I think there was like the initial bomb that happened like when we knew we were pregnant, because we were like ready for kids. Um, and so we were kind of like happy for whatever to happen, but then it happened really quick. And so we were like, oh shit. And that moment was just so crazy, just as an information bomb. And
Right.
what followed the next, month or two was, me anytime I felt, luckily you have like 9 months to like really know everything, but like for a couple months I just was reading so much out of fear, and I didn't know anything, like I had nieces or nephews, so I knew how to basically change a diaper,
Right.
but I didn't know what kind of care a pregnant lady needed to go through and what I needed to
Yeah.
do for Megan. I didn't, let alone what to even do when the baby came. And I think the biggest mistake is that I spent all this time learning about pregnancy, like, oh, how to take care of a pregnant woman, this stuff, but like then like halfway through, someone gave me the advice. I think my sister-in-law or someone had said, a lot of my friends say that if I had to do it over again, they would have spent less time learning about pregnancy and more time learning about how to take care of a baby, because once it
Right.
comes, you don't have any time to read. And I was like,
Right.
oh, dude, it's like the best advice I ever got. So like, like starting around like 6 months, I was just reading about how to take care of a baby. And that was a lifesaver, because the first month or two is like the craziest thing you've ever gone through. I mean, you can know all the information and know how you want to organize your day and know about like what you're trying to get her towards, and ultimately trying to get them to sleep on their own and stuff. But in between that is just so many variables, and every kid is different, and you're up all night because they only sleep little bits at a time. I mean, it was like, it's crazy. You're like lack of sleep, you're feeding, everything's brand new. Your whole routine is totally changed, and you can't prep for any of that. So it definitely took like a month or two to kind of stabilize. But we'd planned last year to be off work for this whole year. Um,
Right.
so we just kind of planned, okay, no work or anything. Let's just like focus on this, because we thought it was going to be as big of a deal as it was. And then the quarantine happened, and I mean, it's crazy actually. Our across the street neighbors, who are like good friends of ours, they're our age too. They had a kid at the same time. So Megan and her were
Oh,
pregnant together,
nice.
and they gave birth at around the same like couple weeks. So we were like doing all the stroller rides together. They were home from work. We were home from work. So it's kind of a bummer to leave them. But other than that, like
Right.
we were like, let's go to Canada. We meant to spend the summer there anyway, and we try to split the year here and there. So try to spend like 6 months here. So we're like, let's just go there early. I put her, Megan and Winnie in my motor home, and we just drove across country so we didn't have to fly. And it was great. It was totally fun. And we
That's
made it.
wicked.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, you planned to do this ahead of time. What was the timing like with you getting your like residency for Canada related to COVID? Like, how tight was that timeline, and what would have happened, I guess, if you didn't get that?
I don't know, because I don't know why the border officers let me through, and they saw that my, or if they wouldn't, they might not have let me through for my
Right.
residency app because I don't have the physical whatever, but it's like all been
Right.
processed and it's good. So I started the
Okay.
process like a year ago. I got an immigration lawyer, and I wanted to, work up here. I wanted to live up here. We've been talking about raising Winnie up here and going to school and stuff up here. So we just wanted the option. Megan's working towards her dual as well, and it's something we always just wanted to do. So so I'd started the process like a year or so ago. It just came through right before this whole thing went down. So it was like, really lucky. But it's nice for us to have the option because I think, definitely, I mean, Ontario's doing better than Canada. I mean, doing than California. But I think
Yeah.
Canada in general is doing like, a really good job. And, America's, it's like not doing as good. So like for us, it's kind of like just justifies this whole process. We're like, cool, this is what we wanted is, to have the gift of being able to have two countries that we have the option of being in. And, we love Canada so much. So we're so happy. Once we crossed the border, we were like, yeah, 'cause we thought, oh, they're going to close the border before we get here. Like I was gunning it, it's just like kept thinking, don't close the border. Don't make us get all the way to Michigan. And then they're like, no, you
Right.
can't come through. But when we got in, we were like, oh God, it was cool.
That's fun. I mean, listen, we're always happy to have good Americans. People always joke about moving to Canada and
I know.
having a better life, but I mean, it's great if Megan does get the dual citizenship. I have dual citizenship.
Oh, you do?
I was born in LA, but moved here with my mom at a very young age and lived most of my life in Canada. So travel back and forth is really easy.
Yeah,
Just to go back and forth, and then obviously, like maybe Winnie, she might have the dual citizenship as well, and that'll
she
make life
does.
for
Yeah.
her. So that's perfect. So obviously, COVID has sort of thrown a wrench into things for everyone. Obviously, you guys were planning on being home and raising Winnie, and so you have like the kids sing-alongs, you have the coffee with Tyler on Zoom, the guitar lessons, the music by the water and in the camper. Not to mention the live haircut that we saw on
Oh,
on
yeah.
Instagram Live. You're obviously keeping busy. Have you been writing during this time?
Yeah, I've actually mostly been writing, like I write scripts and stuff sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And, nothing I've written has ever gotten made, but, it's gotten picked up and developed by different companies. And I like really enjoy it. So as a songwriter, I've been writing a bunch, like for my new record, working on different songs, random stuff. But I've actually gotten to do a lot of like, uh, screenwriting and stuff while I've been up here, and I've been really digging it. Um, and I've got a bunch of like random projects like I've been developing. Like the one that's doing the best right now is So I was producing like Billy Ray Cyrus's record before the quarantine happened with my friend Jocko, who produces my records, and we've been producing and writing for his record. And while we were doing it, we were like, dude, this guy is wild. He should be a cartoon. And so I kind of wrote up this whole pitch about a Billy Ray Cyrus cartoon. And his management loved it. And we got this really great animation studio on board. And then we brought in some really great animation writers from like Family Guy and King of the Hill and stuff.
Oh
So
wow.
they're just running with it. And it's like, we've been doing weekly meetings and been looking at the artwork. And it's like actually going. It's so funny. So there's just a bunch of random shit like that that's kind of happened. But, it's wild. I didn't know when we got up here, I had planned on doing like a couple shows here and there, but after everything got canceled, we didn't know if we would ever work again or if it would be years or, it's just weird.
Right.
There's no stability in like what we do anyway. So that's why I kind of started the coffees with the Tylers and I started the live streams because I was like, I want to dig in for a second and start some things that might be around for a while, keep me connected to the fans so I don't show up like 6 months later and be like, how is everyone? Is everyone okay? So I was like, that kind of helped me feel like sane and connected to everyone. So I didn't like, just float off into outer space and lose touch with the kind of everything I'd built last year too and all the
Right.
touring and stuff. And that like just made me feel so much better once I got all that going. And I've been loving keeping in touch with the fans and even, doing stuff like with you or doing interviews and stuff like it's a fun thing to keep going. But most of the time I'm spent like just doing stuff I can't do in LA. Like really just like
Right.
being in nature here. We're like on a river, so I've been kayaking at night and like or in the evening, you know, it's just like, oh, it's been great.
Now, before we dive into your career, which I obviously want to touch upon, I want to talk a little bit about the reason that I've been hounding Quinn for like 6 weeks to like 2 months to try to get in touch with you. I wrote her a lengthy email, and I'm not sure if you got a chance to read it, but part of the idea around this podcast, the Big O podcast, the O stands for Ohana, so meaning family. It's a Hawaiian term, and obviously now with Winnie, you have a relative, you have your daughter, she's part of your family, but now you probably start to inventory the good role models and the people you want as part of your life, people who
Yeah.
affect, the positive role models affect you in positive ways, and you want to get rid of the negativity because you don't want Winnie to be around that. You know, as an adult, maybe we keep some people we don't necessarily want to get rid of or we don't know how to, but when a child comes, it
Yeah.
completely changes everything. And so I actually came across you watching One Tree Hill, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, in 2005. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
I was a little bit late. I was about 2 years late after it originally started, and
But still.
how I came across you was my grandparents. They both passed away in August of 2005, and it was the first time that I heard your music when I started watching the show, and the first song you obviously played was "Glad" off of the tracks of Tyler Hilton,
Yeah.
and there was something that resonated with me. It was the first time that music affected me in such a way. I'd never really gone through such an emotional, depressing time in my life, and it was the first time
Whoa.
where music lifted me from that. And obviously, you know, you have your music you listen to in your headphones or your CD Walkmans, your
Yeah, yeah.
cassettes, the Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls. But for the first time, there was a sound that really two sounds. So it was you who I listened to and saw you on One Tree Hill, and it was Death Cab for Cutie. Obviously, two kind of
Yeah.
different
Whoa.
styles of music. And from that moment, from the tracks of Tyler Hilton, from Glad to my favorite song, uh, When I'm Gone, or uh, remind me, I'm going
When it
a
comes?
blank. When It Comes, my
Oh, right,
goodness,
right, right.
it's my favorite. It's my favorite song, and I forgot the title.
Oh,
That's
dude.
lovely. Um, and so your music just resonated with me, and this was a time where I'm taking inventory and I'm thinking about, you know, who do I want to speak to? Who, if I got a shot in a million years to talk to, who would it be? And obviously, I wrote Quinn the email, and I said, you know, listen, here's my life. This is what Tyler did for me. Obviously, he doesn't know who I am, but I'm sure I'm not the only person who's ever been affected positively by his music. I would love an opportunity to speak to him. And here and behold, you know, a few weeks later, you're taking the time, you know, away from your work, your projects, and your, you know, 6-month-old daughter. And I just want to start off by saying I'm very appreciative of you taking the time today to talk to me.
Dude, I appreciate it. I really feel that, and it's really cool to hear. I don't get to hear that enough. You know, you see messages on Instagram, but like I felt the same way about artists, and that's crazy that for you, I'm that artist, you know, or that you had
Yeah.
moments like that with me. That's really cool, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so it was definitely
Wow.
a strange time. I mean, I was probably at the end of high school, and it wasn't maybe the most popular time. Obviously, the girls loved One Tree Hill, so it's
Right.
probably the reason that I got into it. But I'm very glad that I did because it really branched out and added another type of music that I probably wouldn't have listened to necessarily on the radio, but it came at the perfect time and
Right.
really sparked something in me. And I've, you know, it culminated within 2015. I actually got to go see you and Kate Vogel down at the Mod Club in Toronto.
Oh, you did?
And yeah, and it was, I was actually going through I told you before the podcast, my old computer died. And one of the last files on there was the e-ticket for the Mod Club that I had purchased to come see you and
Wow.
Kate. And I'm just like, oh man, this is all full circle. Everything's that's happening. This is perfect. But I, you know, it's funny. I posted on Instagram that I was going to be doing this with you, and I have a lot of friends who love One Tree Hill, and you know, they were going goo goo over the fact that you were going to come and join me, and they had a
Oh,
few
dude.
questions that I'm gonna have to ask you. Otherwise, they're going to be a little bit upset with me. But diving into your childhood, What inspired you to become a musician? Was it music that was initially your passion and you always wanted to get into it? How did that sort of come to be?
Yeah, my family are all a lot of musicians, and I grew up around this like crazy musical culture where like my uncles had played for in bands and backed up people like Fleetwood Mac and Donovan. They're all from Southern California, and they were like, my uncle's band was signed to George Harrison's record label. So there was just this like I kind of grew up in this world where like all my family seemed to be like musicians, and I thought that
Yeah.
was very cool. They always played music together when they got together. We'd go to
Nice.
this bluegrass festival every year as a family, and every night we were camping, everybody would sing, and it wasn't like for the kids, like, hey, let's sing kid songs. Like the adults were jamming, and for
Yeah.
a kid to see that, I just felt like so drawn to it. Like, I want that. I remember thinking like, all I want to do is be somebody who can play guitar. If I could play guitar, I can sing, because I loved to sing when I was young, but I was like, I could sing along with myself, and then what else do I need? Like I could sing under a tree, I could sing on the side of the road, I could do whatever. I just felt like that one skill that no one could ever take away from me. I could always, there's almost some security in being like, that's what I want to do. And I was just so sure of it. I loved acting and performing and stuff. I got really into theater in middle school and high school and all that, but that was like just for fun. But I knew I was going to be a musician forever. And then when I first got started, my very first record, when I was 15, my uncles like produced it, and they all played on it and stuff. So even though I think the songwriting is kind of like whatever, the musicianship on it is like, it's like the Doobie Brothers drummer and my, uncles playing guitar. I was like, everyone was so pro. It was amazing. So I learned a lot. I came up kind of feeling like the younger kid that was always learning.
Right.
And so, and in fact, Jocko, who I produced all the stuff with, he was my first guitar player and stuff. His dad was kind of part of my whole uncle's group and stuff. So we kind of
Oh,
all
wow.
came up in the same LA music scene with so it was just crazy. It's cool. So I had that going for me.
When people say it takes a village to raise someone, I mean, that's really like the idea around that, right? You have people
Yeah.
from different parts of, music who come together for the better good. And I mean, you pick up and you learn, and obviously you get to develop who you are and get like a head start, get a little bit more experience than maybe the average person
Yeah.
might have. Now, you brought up getting started in high school. So your big break came at like 16 years old. So what happened for your big break that ultimately landed your first record deal at, I think it was 18?
Yeah. Well, it was a lot happened between 15 and 18. Like I was pretty shy. It kind of took me a little bit to get out of my head and perform, even though I really wanted to. And my dad had really encouraged me, like, you gotta, you've been learning to play guitar. You gotta go to an open mic and you gotta sing. And that to me was like so nerve wracking. I think, I've been thinking a lot about the concept of indifference and like how
Right.
powerful like indifference can be towards something. Like if you don't need it, a lot of times you hear about it in the dating world or whatever. If you're like, act like you don't like someone, they like dig that vibe or that casual
Yeah.
coolness that comes with people being like, oh, I don't care, dude, or what. It's just like there's
Yeah.
something so sexy about indifference, and you can fake it. But sometimes when you actually feel that way, it's easy for you to like really come in and disrupt something or be particularly good at something because you don't care
Yeah.
about it. You're not precious about it. Well, for me, like it was the opposite with music. Like music, I've always cared about so much and wanted it so bad that it would
Right.
oftentimes get in my own way. I don't know if everyone, I mean, I definitely know everyone doesn't relate to this, but some people maybe, but so my vibe was like, even just to get on stage at a stupid coffee shop with like 5 people and play my music, I almost like threw up before I went on stage. I did not want to go. I mean, even just the thought sometimes of walking into a coffee shop still gives me like PTSD to this day, because there's so much anxiety because I needed it to go well so bad. And it was, people would always be like, oh man, you've got such a good voice. Oh, you sound so good. And I'd always be like shocked, like they could have just as
Right.
easily been like, you suck. And I'd be like, I know. And they'd be like, you were good. And so that's why I kept wanting to do it. But even to get on stage killed me. I just say all that to like build up to, I was doing these Johnny Lang songs or whatever in these coffee houses. I love Johnny Lang. I love blues music, and Johnny Lang was a young blues singer. So I would do a bunch of songs, but his in particular. Anyway, he was coming through LA. I lived in Palm Springs. They're giving away tickets on this radio station. And so I called in to play a Johnny Lang song. My dad was like, you got to call in. And I was like, I can't. I was like so nervous. He's like, They will love how you sound, and you will get these tickets, and you'll get to go see Johnny Lang in concert. So I called in. I'm thinking, like, why would they want to put me on the air singing this Johnny Lang song into a phone? They did. They loved it. It was happened to be broadcast like nationwide, and I got the tickets. And then afterwards, they were like, "Hey, will you call us after the concert and just let us know how it was?" So I was like, "Okay." So I called back. They put me on air again the next day. They were like, "Hey, do you know any other songs?" And I was like, "Well, actually, write songs." They had me play some of my songs that I wrote on the air, and then they got this like
Wow.
big, I don't know, I guess response from their listeners or whatever. And I don't know how much of it had to do with how good I sounded, but I think for them it was really good radio too. There's this like
Sure.
15-year-old kid, and he's like, "Oh shoot," he's like, "pretty good," and we just gave him these tickets, and I think people were enamored by the whole thing and just charmed by it. So they kept bringing me back in, and then they eventually had me drive to LA, be in the studio with them, and play these songs. So I got this huge nationwide platform just because I called in to get these tickets, and they kept bringing me back. And then they took me on tour with them as they would do little appearances in different parts of the country. Cause like I said, this Mark and Brian show, they were broadcast everywhere. And so by the time, so then that kind of led me to make this independent record with my uncles. And I was like, look, I'm going to put all these songs I've been writing and playing on the air, like in this record. That record kind of got picked up by a bunch of people, and all these labels wanted to like meet with me. So, I was like obviously stoked. So I'm like flying to New York. This is crazy. Actually, the Canada connection is, so I flew to New York, I flew to LA, I would meet with all these label people. And finally I got this deal with this record company called London Sire. And they were like, "Yo, there's this
Right.
producer we really want to put you in touch with. He's Canadian. He's out of Toronto. His name's Hoxley Workman. And so we
Oh,
want to fly
nice.
you up to like Toronto and work with him." So I was like 16. I flew up to Toronto, spent like 2 weeks recording by myself up here. It was crazy. And anyway, after they heard the demos, they dropped me. And then I got like some interest from another label, and it went away. So by the time I was like 18, I felt like every label had already heard me and dropped me. So I was like so bummed. And so I
Right.
just like graduated high school, went to Europe, and just kind of like traveled around and wanted to just live homeless. And I just made money playing music on the trains and the parks. I was just totally enamored by blues musician. I thought the business was bullshit. And I just was like such a purist about folk music, blues music. That's what I wanted to do. Um, and that's what I did. And I said, I don't want anyone to contact me, blah, blah, blah. And then by the time I got home, there was an email waiting that said that Warner Brothers wanted to meet with me. So I
Wow.
was like, okay. So I met with them, and they signed me. And that began kind of like a whole other part of my life where I had kind of already given up on the business. I thought, okay, I'm already washed up, it feels like, at 18. And here I got
Jeez.
signed, and that's when everything started. I mean, not to mention like One Tree Hill and Walk the Line, that all came a few years later. But, so it was just, that was kind of how I even got into it. It was crazy.
And that's actually the next step that I want to go. So obviously, growing up, you were a big Elvis Presley fan. That was your guy
Yeah.
that you look up to. What was it like to get the opportunity to work alongside someone like Joaquin Phoenix in the Oscar-winning movie Walk the Line and get to play Elvis Presley?
It totally scared the shit out of me. And when they told me, I didn't go in to try out to be Elvis. I went in to try out to be a musician in the
Right.
background. They were looking for like extras and stuff to be in Johnny Cash's band. So when they asked me to like play some Elvis songs after I'd played a Johnny Cash song, I was like, okay, I know a bunch of Elvis songs. But I hadn't read the script or anything. I didn't know Elvis was in it. They were just looking for musicians. It was like an open call. So then my agent called, and they're like, they want to send you the script. They want to see if you could read some lines as Elvis. I was like, to play in the movie as an actor? Like, I was thinking, what do you like? I didn't even know how that worked. I didn't know how you got a part in a movie. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
I hadn't been on an audition. And I went in and I read these lines, and they were like, I guess liked it and kept calling me back. And I kept being like, what's going on here? Like, and then eventually my agent called, and they were like, they want to offer you the part. And I was like, to be in the movie? And I said, no, I like said, I can't be, I can't. I was like, no, I didn't like, I'm not an actor. I love
Yeah.
Elvis. You got to have a professional play Elvis, but not me. And so I like said no. And then, they were like, well, why'd you audition? I was like, felt bad, because I was like, I don't know. I didn't know. I was just too nervous. It was like the whole thing with the coffee house thing, where I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you've heard this story before, but like, I feel like I've told the story a million times, but it's crazy. But I ran into Joaquin Phoenix in a bar after I said no. And I like went up
Really?
to him. Yeah. And I was like, yo, dude, I just want to say, like, I read Walk the Line. It's going to be a really cool movie. And he wasn't that famous then, you know?
Right.
But I was like, it's going to be a cool movie. I tried out for it. I got the part, but I'm not going to do it. I'm a musician and I'm not really an actor. And, you guys should get an actor to do it. And he was like, dude, I saw your audition tape. You have to do this movie. And I was
Oh,
like,
there you go.
what do you mean? He was like, no, I'm telling you, we're getting all these people who have never acted before to play the musicians.
Wow.
Reese and I have never been a musician before, and we're learning. So everyone's going to be like off their game. Like you gotta do it. And so I called my agents or whatever, and I was like, okay, I'll do it if the part's still available. So just a roundabout way of like, I was so nervous, I said no to it. That's how much I loved Elvis. I was like, I can't do this.
Wow. Well, I mean, listen, you turned in quite the performance. It won the Oscar, so obviously everybody on set, from Hakuin to everybody, made a fantastic film.
Yeah.
And then so you in 2004, and I wrote it down so I get it right. Season 2, episode 6, you make your debut as Chris Keller
right?
on One Tree Hill. It's funny because during this time with COVID, everyone's rewatching things, and I finished rewatching one of my favorite shows, Scrubs, and I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time to get One Tree Hill. One Tree Hill is an investment. It's a lot of episodes. They're like 40 minutes long. I have 2 young girls, so I have to like really pick. Yeah, I have my youngest turned 1 in March, and my oldest is I call her a 3-nager because she's 3, but she's really a teenager.
That's funny.
She repeats everything that I don't want her to, and sometimes funny things, sometimes things that dad doesn't want mom to know that he's saying. But she's growing up obviously in this generation where she's just picking up and absorbing so much more than we could ever imagine. And so we have to be very careful because she's got that little diva-like attitude right now, which I absolutely love, but it also scares the hell out of me. And so how did you find yourself with the role of Chris Keller, and did you imagine that it would lead to the popularity of your music the way that it has?
No, and I didn't know what One Tree Hill was when I first tried out for it. Like, I remember my label had said, this guy who runs the show, he puts a lot of music on this like kind of teen drama, and he likes this song of yours, and he wants to find a way to bring a musician on the show as like a character. And so I had heard that they were looking at, he had written a part for Butch Walker. It was either going to be Butch Walker or Matt Nathanson, or who they were looking at. But he ended up liking my song. He was like, yo, I think he's a little young for the part that I wrote, but I want to meet him because I really like the song. So they liked Glad. So I came in and I met with them. I played Glad, and they were like, at the time I was kind of doing all this stuff that I didn't understand because I just had a single out. The first time I was in a major label, and they were pushing me to do all these weird promo things that I couldn't even keep track of them anymore. I couldn't tell if I wanted to do any of them or not. And by the time they said like, hey, you're going to go on this, check out this teen drama called One Tree Hill. We're going to have you go on there and sing. I was like, that sounds annoying and lame. But I was like, all right. Cause you're just like trying to promote the single and trying to like break through the noise and whatever. And they were like, it won't be your single when it comes, but he wants you to play the song Glad. So to me, I thought they were just writing like just some like lines just for me to say on the show. It was not supposed to be like a character that stayed around. It wasn't supposed to be like a whole arc, or it wasn't supposed to be anything. It was just supposed to be like a reason for me to come on the show and sing some songs. And, like they did with like K-Fed and, random people throughout. They just write people in just for a second, And so that's what happened. They just wrote me in, and I was kind of like, what am I doing here? I didn't understand. But then when I got there, the front office in Wilmington sent me the whole season 1 on video cassette. And I watched it one weekend, and I was like, I'm obsessed with this show. Like, I got so into it. And then I showed up on set Monday morning after watching the whole first season, and it was like, oh my God, that's Peyton. Oh my God, that's Brooke. Oh my God, that's Lucas. Like, it was so weird to all of a sudden be like, get the part when I didn't. Talk about indifference. That's the whole thing again, where you're like, I was like, I literally couldn't care less, and then I get the part. And then I watch the show, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best show ever. And the next day I'm all nervous on set, like, oh my God, that's Haley. You know what I mean? And then, but we're all like really young. It just kind of felt like the first day of school. And then we got close really fast. It was really weird. Like, I don't know if it was Chad and I or Hillary was probably my first friend on set, but we just got close. And that was the time, except for Chad and Sophia being together, nobody else really had relationships. So
Right.
your friendships were the most important thing. It's that age where
Right.
before relationships matter, your friendships are the most. So we got so tight. We were each other's. And we're in this town that's not Hollywood. We don't have anyone we work with or know in that town except each other. So we would
Right.
get together all the time. We only hung out with each other. Every time the show would air, we were at somebody's house watching it. Like we were like 19, 20, 21, 22. We're like young
Right.
and can't believe this is happening. And I'm just kind of caught up in their early energy because, the show had been on for a season and a bit. And they were like, holy shit, we got picked up for a second season. This is great. So I'm kind of like, all right, whatever, and then, but season 2, I felt like it really started picking up. And I just happened to get in at the right time. And we became like inseparable. And the show really took off in season 2. And that's when, we were in this whole like PR bubble together where
Right.
it was, me and Joy and Hillary and Sophia and Chad and James, we were doing like TRL all the time and doing all that stuff like as this cast. So I kept being like, what am I doing here? Like I just came on to promote my album and now I'm like on this show. But, at the time I was, like I thought making decisions about money or PR was so uncool. I like wanted to make every decision honestly. And honestly, I thought like, do I want to hang out around with these people? And that was the main reason I kept doing the show. I thought like these people are some of the favorite people I've ever met. I want to be around them all the time. And all I want to do is work with these guys. Like I just loved everyone in the cast so much. We got so tight and we're like family to this day. So it kept me coming back. And, meanwhile, the show is just getting bigger and bigger. And I just never would have guessed, though, it would have gotten as big as it did. And it would have stayed as big as it has. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's funny because there were 2 shows growing up that I watched that really had a major influence of music that was a focal point of the show. One Tree Hill was one of them, and the OC. And that was I think it was Adam Brody was really big because they had like their music scene and they would have the guests come on and sing like a song or two, and really big on that. And those are the things that I absolutely fell in love with. Now you alluded to something that you remain friends with a lot of the castmates. I've seen part of the Friends with Benefits charity. Obviously there was a Trick in Wilmington. You guys have gone back and done shows and they do tours there. Over the years, what are some of like maybe the fun things that you guys continue to do? Because you still are making like Lifetime movies with Hillary Burton and your wife. And I was going through it. I mean, I don't know their names, but I'm going to say Deb and Mouth and
right.
and Antoine Tanner. I mean, you've done all of these movies.
Yeah.
So you're obviously still tight with them. But explain to me the feeling of disappointment that you felt when you couldn't make it to Hillary Burton's wedding. Because I know that was a big deal for you.
Dude, it was a big deal. That's funny you asked that. Yeah, it was a real downer. And Hillary was so cool to come to our wedding and fly across the country. And same with Lee Norris, who plays Mouth, and a few of the other kids. And I think we were set to go. And at the last minute, something happened with Megan, her pregnancy or something. We had to go in the doctor's last minute, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something that we thought was going to be serious, and thank God it didn't end up being. But at the time, there was only one decision. It was like, oh, we can't go. We have to like go to the doctors. And obviously Hillary understood because she was so supportive in us, getting pregnant, like having the baby. She gave Megan so much great advice, gives me so much great advice as a parent to this day. So, obviously she understood, but I was like, so annoyed at life because it sounded like so much fun and then on top of that I just wanted to support her and be there and watch this beautiful day for her because we've known each other, I don't know, it's almost gonna be like half of our life, it seems like. Crazy.
All right, so I got 2 more things to ask you. I know we're getting close on time, so
sure.
I'll try to get them to you. So Taylor Swift, you have a connection with Taylor Swift. How did you develop this relationship that at some point you were actually staying at the Swift household in Nashville? How did that come to happen?
Man, I was doing this interview with this country magazine and I thought I would like look at what they had written before. And so I saw in their last issue, they had profiled this like young up and coming girl named Taylor Swift. So just to like be a brown noser, I was like, well, let me listen to Taylor's music. And then when I you know, in the interview for the magazine, I'll be like, yo, I checked out your magazine and, I saw that article about that girl, Taylor Swift, and it was really good. So, and I actually, when I heard her song, Tim McGraw, I was like, wait, this is so good. I still, to this day, I know this is like whatever, but it's like one of like the best written songs I've ever heard because it's so
Wow.
simple. And I never, ever, ever would have thought of the lyric, like when you hear Tim McGraw, I hope you think of me. It's like the kind of thing that only like a 15-year-old girl can get away with writing because it's
Right.
so like innocent. And I just feel like if
Right.
anyone else said that, it'd be like, I don't know. I was just blown away by it.
Yeah.
I also thought it was such a courageous lyric. Like just something so like self-effacing about it. And I don't know. I like actually like became obsessed with it. And so I told the magazine, I was like, yo, and I was so serious this time because I meant to just like look up something they wrote and then throw them a compliment. But I was like, that girl you profiled, Taylor Swift, after you talked about her, I got really into her. She's really good. And she was like a nobody. Randomly, she happens to be like a One Tree Hill fan and she like loves
Oh,
my music and her management sent her the article. And so then she got stoked and her management hit me up and was like, yo, Taylor wants to say thank you for mentioning her article. She's such a big fan and
wow.
she's coming through town playing this bar in Southern California. She wanted to know if you would want to come out and meet her. And I was like, how charming. Like this little girl, like, and I was like, you know what? That would be fun. I would like to meet her and it'd be fun to see her live. And then she was like, okay, if you're coming to the show, would you want to get up and sing Missing You with me? And I was like,
Wow.
that's cool. That would be fun. And so I did. And then when I got on stage and it's like this tiny bar, she was like,
Yeah.
so I have another question for you. Like, is there any way you'd want to like star in my music video with me? And like there was like a couple hundred people at this bar and they were like,
Yeah.
but I was like, yeah, it'd be fun. And I was just like, she was obviously trying to put me on the spot in like a cool way.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be so fun. And my parents met her parents and there's all this like good like vibe backstage. So I was like, yeah, if you guys want to do a music video, I'll totally come like star in it with you or whatever. And then I
Yeah.
got the call. They're like, yeah, we're actually doing the video. Can we fly you to Nashville? It's like, sure. So I got to know her family even more. And then that was Teardrops on My Guitar. And she blew up after that, like blew up.
Up.
And it was like the craziest thing ever to watch this girl who was like so sweet, so talented, like literally take over the world. So a few years after that, when I moved to Nashville to do like a bunch of songs there for a record that never ended up coming out. I ended up staying with them and, they were
That's
like, yeah,
amazing.
come stay with us. And her dad is like an investment banker. So he knows so much stuff about good investments. And he was giving me all this advice about buying a house down there. And they just really were cool and like took me under their wing and the whole family's cool.
That's awesome. All right. The last thing I want to ask, it's going to be focused kind of a little bit on Megan. So, first off, amazing Canadian girl, Lindsay, Ontario, not far
Yeah.
from the city. It was actually one of my friends who was like, "Listen, you really got to talk about Megan. This is really kind of a cool thing." And so she grew up just like maybe like an hour, 2 hours away from where I am, maybe like 2.5, 3 hours from where you actually are. Where did you guys meet, and how exactly did the relationship blossom? Because you guys, I believe, you got engaged in 2013, married in 2015, had Winnie in 2020. You have had like the most epic decade,
Oh
life-changing
yeah.
decade of all
Dang.
time. So
Yeah.
how did that all come to be?
Well, we met in that movie Charlie Bartlett because it filmed in
Okay.
Toronto, and she was like a local hire. So you have to hire a certain amount of Canadian actors for
Yes.
movies that film here. And she was
Yeah.
living in London at her mom's where she grew up. Or I think she moved here when she was like 10. But but yeah, and so we met on this movie, and I was staying in Toronto, and she kept kind of taking the train from Toronto or from London when she would have to film. And we met day one. She was the first actress I had a scene with in the movie. It was literally day one, scene one, and I thought she was so cool. And immediately I was like, "Yo, do you want to hang out?" And I didn't really know anyone else on the set, and so we just started like hanging out pretty much the whole movie. And then when it was time to leave, I was living in Nashville. I don't know where I was living. I was just like, oh, I like don't want to say goodbye to this girl. So we just kind of like made it official, and we just kind of promised each other to never go 3 weeks without seeing each other, never go
Wow.
longer than that. And so we kept that up pretty much our whole relationship, and it was cool. And I came down to visit her in London and like loved it. And I just love Canada. I love Canadians. I just love it here. I really do. I was so enamored with it. How
It's
was
it's
Lindsay? I've never been there. She's like, I have to take you, and I've always wanted to go. Have you been?
Lindsay's I have been. It's kind of like in the just on the outskirts of like cottage country. So like this time of year, it would be like perfect.
Wow.
It won't be too busy because obviously with COVID, not everyone's running up to their cottage, but it's definitely like a small town. I think there are a couple of colleges up there, but it's definitely a place that if you're enjoying nature in London where you are, you would definitely enjoy like some of the day trip adventures, whether it's like kayaking or canoeing or going for a hike on some of the trails. I feel like you would, and it would be like a nice weekend getaway from London, a nice distraction.
Where else,
So,
like in Ontario, is like, do we have to go that you've been that you're like, oh, this is so beautiful, you got to go? Or what areas? Like,
well, if you like camping, like Algonquin Park is probably like the number one place that you'd want to go if
really?
you want to do like a camping kind of trip. But there's so many hidden gems, even in like Halton Hills area, which is kind of like between where you and I are. So it's maybe like a
Wow.
45-minute drive, maybe. If you go up to Hamilton, closer to like Niagara Falls, there's a lot of wonderful, beautiful falls and provincial parks that you can go to, and they're really nice day trip spots, like
Oh,
like
wow.
hidden gems for sure. There's you're definitely in the right area. If you were in the East End, it's a little bit different. I know more of the West End spots, but it's definitely nice. And
That's
if you
cool.
guys want to get away, it's definitely a good opportunity for that.
That's cool. Oh, we got to check out some stuff. Yeah, that's cool. We love being up here. But we keep looking for little places that maybe we would settle down or we would get a cottage or I don't know. We keep thinking maybe we'd raise Winnie in Toronto or we can't decide. I don't know. We just are kind of exploring all around. We also love BC, but we have
Right.
a soft spot for Ontario. But
Well, I'm biased. If you want a place to come move into, Mississauga is a great up and coming. It's like the future version of Toronto, but way less busy.
oh, really? Yeah, I hear so
Because
many cool things about it.
yeah. So, but I mean, I grew up in Toronto for most of my life. I only moved out to Mississauga once I got married, and so I obviously love Toronto as well. But Ontario in itself is just a beautiful place. I mean, our slogan on our old license plates was "Yours to discover," and it
Yeah.
really is that. I mean, there are tons of hidden beautiful gems all over the province that every weekend for an entire summer, if you picked one spot, you'd still miss out on so much, but you'd get so much value in doing some weekend
Wow.
trips. Yeah.
Wow,
So,
that's cool. That's really cool. That's
well, Tyler,
amazing.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Like I said, this is a big moment for me, just with the importance that your music has had on my life. So I appreciate that. Shout out to the Canadian girl Megan
Yeah.
for roping you in.
Dude, thank you
And
for having me, and I really appreciate that. It's so sweet to say, and it's cool. That kind of stuff like gives me, confidence to move forward. That's dope. Thank you.
You released a new music video for your song "When I See You, I See Home," which you actually used the footage from your wedding for.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Everyone can find that on Spotify, Apple Music, at Tyler Hilton on Instagram. Is there anything else that you want to put out there? You have more Zoom coffee with Tyler coming up.
Yeah, yeah. You check out my website, tylerhilton.com. We have like, COVID masks for sale now. And
Nice.
we got, you could do like a hang with me on Tuesdays. We have like virtual coffees on Zoom. So check it out if you want. But, we'll just make that work until we all hang out again on tour.
Awesome. Appreciate you taking the time today. It was a pleasure. Good luck being a new parent, raising Winnie, and hopefully this all sort of the new normal sort of kicks in soon, and we get to hear some more of your new music and see you live eventually. That is something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Hopefully sometime soon, considering you're also so close.
Dude, I appreciate it, man. Me too. Well, take care.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler.
All right, see you, man.
Take care.
Bye.